Wood ash has a terrible reputation in the garden. Many experts warned that even a small handful can burn roots and send soil pH soaring above 11. It is often described as harsh, dangerous, and capable of ruining your plants overnight. But what if that same gray powder could become one of the fastest natural growth boosters you can make at home? What if, with one simple change, it transforms into a bubbling, living tonic that works faster than bottled fertilizers, yet can never sit on a store shelf because it is alive and constantly changing? Why is something so powerful so little talked about? And what exactly makes raw ash so risky in the first place? Raw wood ash is far more than harmless fireplace dust. When you mix it with water, the reaction is immediate and intense. It contains compounds like potassium hydroxide and calcium carbonate. Potassium hydroxide, the same substance used to make lye, dissolves quickly and pushes the pH sharply upward. A fresh mixture of hardwood ash and water can test above 11 on a pH meter, which is even more alkaline than household bleach. That extreme alkalinity is where the trouble begins. Soil thrives on balance, and raw ash disrupts it dramatically. Important nutrients such as iron, manganese, and phosphorus become chemically locked up, meaning plants cannot absorb them. Instead of gently feeding roots, the solution floods them with harsh salts. In severe cases, the outer layers of root cells can burn, leaving brown, damaged tissue underground. The impact does not stop with the roots. Soil microbes, the tiny living organisms that keep soil healthy and active, are highly sensitive to sudden pH shifts. A strong dose of raw ash can wipe out delicate microbial communities in hours. What was once living, thriving soil can quickly become biologically stressed or nearly sterile. That is why university extension labs caution gardeners to be extremely careful. Even small amounts, especially on moist soil, can cause shock. This is the reason raw wood ash has earned its reputation as a garden hazard rather than a gentle soil amendment. You can often see the damage before you ever test the soil. Root tips turn brown and brittle. New leaves wilt or yellow. Growth slows or stalls altogether. Guidelines typically recommend strict limits on how much ash can be applied each year, and always with caution. Spread too thickly or too close to young plants, it can cause serious harm. Used improperly, raw ash behaves more like a chemical cleaner than a fertilizer. So how can something so harsh become something helpful? The transformation begins with something simple: ash, water, and a small amount of sugar. At first, it looks unremarkable, but within hours, tiny bubbles begin to rise to the surface. That fizz is carbon dioxide, a clear sign that microbes are becoming active. Yeasts begin breaking down the sugars. Then, lactic acid bacteria step in, producing mild organic acids. As this fermentation unfolds, the mixture starts to change. The sharp alkalinity softens. The strong, caustic smell fades into something earthy and mild. The organic acids produced during fermentation bind to minerals like potassium and calcium in a process called chelation. Instead of remaining in harsh, root-burning forms, the minerals become wrapped in organic compounds that plants can absorb more safely and efficiently. In other words, fermentation turns a chemical shock into a biologically balanced plant tonic. The minerals are no longer aggressive salts. They are buffered, stabilized, and easier for roots to take in. The bubbling is not just visual drama. It is evidence of a living process that transforms ash from a potential hazard into a gentle, nutrient-rich solution. What started as a substance known for burning roots becomes, through biology, something entirely different. The minerals are unlocked and pre-digested by microbes, ready to move into plant roots quickly and smoothly. The danger lies in the raw form. The power lies in the transformation. Lab testing takes this out of the realm of guesswork. When raw wood ash is stirred into water, the pH spikes fast. Digital meters regularly read above 11, confirming just how caustic the mixture really is. But let that same ash ferment with a little molasses for a week, and the story changes. As the mixture bubbles and microbes get to work, the pH gradually drops, often settling around 7.5 to 8. That shift alone is significant, but the real magic is not just in the acidity, it is in what happens to the minerals. Extension lab reports show a clear increase in soluble nutrients after fermentation. Advanced testing methods, such as inductively coupled plasma analysis, reveal that potassium, once tied up in a harsh hydroxide form, becomes more available to plants. Calcium follows the same trend, dissolving more fully into the liquid and becoming easier for roots to absorb. Atomic absorption tests confirm it. Fermented samples consistently contain more plant-available potassium and calcium than raw ash water. In one trial, soluble potassium in fermented ash tea nearly doubled compared to the raw mixture. Calcium increased by 30 to 40%. These are not small differences. They are measurable, repeatable changes caused by the fermentation process. As organic acids form during fermentation, they bind to minerals and keep them suspended in solution. This chelation not only increases availability, but also softens the overall impact of the solution. The lower, near-neutral pH allows plant roots to take in nutrients without shock. Soil microbes also survive and thrive instead of being wiped out by extreme alkalinity. The lab data supports what gardeners observe. Fermentation buffers the pH, increases soluble minerals, and turns a harsh substance into a balanced plant feed. This is not myth or folklore. The instruments tell the same story the bubbling jar does. And then there are the plants themselves. In controlled trials, trays of radishes and tomatoes are watered side by side. One group receives diluted fermented ash tea. Another receives raw ash solution. A third gets commercial NPK fertilizer. A fourth receives only water. Within days, differences begin to show. Seedlings treated with fermented ash tea often emerge first, followed closely by those given NPK. The raw ash group typically lags behind. Some seeds fail to sprout. Others produce pale, weak growth. By the end of the first week, the contrast becomes striking. Radish leaves in the fermented group grow larger and develop a deep, healthy green color. Tomato plants show thicker stems and stronger branching. Measured shoot length can run significantly higher than untreated plants and even exceed the NPK group in early growth stages. Leaf area expands noticeably, increasing the plant's ability to capture sunlight and produce energy. When roots are examined after 2 weeks, the fermented group often shows dense, white, fibrous root systems. In contrast, plants exposed to raw ash may have sparse or browned roots, reflecting earlier stress. In fruiting trials, tomatoes treated with fermented ash frequently set buds earlier, with clusters forming days ahead of both untreated and conventionally fertilized plants. The most remarkable difference is speed. Synthetic fertilizers tend to produce steady, predictable growth. Fermented ash tea can trigger what many gardeners describe as an explosion of early vigor. When minerals are buffered and biologically processed, plants seem able to absorb them almost immediately, translating into rapid, visible gains.
Wood ash was not always dismissed as waste. In the early 1800s, it was a valuable global commodity. Families collected fireplace ash, leached it to produce potash, and sold it to support industries such as soap making and glass production. By the mid-19th century, potash exports were significant and entire local economies depended on it.
But everything shifted in the early 20th century. Advances in mining uncovered vast underground potash deposits. The development of synthetic nitrogen production made commercial fertilizers cheap and widely available. Rail transport and industrial manufacturing favored stable, uniform blends of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that could be stored for long periods without change.
As industrial fertilizers rose, traditional ash processing declined. What was once a prized local resource faded into obscurity. By the mid-1900s, branded chemical fertilizers dominated the market. Living, unstable brews like fermented ash tea simply did not fit into a system built on long shelf life and global distribution. And so wood ash, once central to agriculture and trade, became an afterthought. Its raw form earned a reputation for risk. Its transformed potential was largely forgotten in the march toward convenience and uniformity.
A fertilizer that comes alive and boosts plants in just days sounds almost too good to be true. So why is fermented ash tea not lining the shelves of garden centers? The answer is simple. It is not banned. It is not secret. It just does not fit into the modern supply chain. The moment you mix ash, water, and sugar, the jar turns into a tiny, living reactor. Microbes wake up, multiply, and begin feeding. As they work, they release carbon dioxide. That bubbling action is exactly what makes the mixture powerful, but it is also what makes it impossible to bottle and ship. Seal the lid tightly, and pressure builds. Enough pressure to pop caps, split seams, or even burst plastic containers. Leave it loosely covered, and the fermentation continues, but only for a short time. After about 2 weeks, the microbes run out of food. The acids weaken. The brew loses its strength. What was once vibrant and active slowly goes flat. Garden centers rely on products that can sit in storage for months or even years without changing. Fermented ash tea refuses to behave that way. It is alive. It is active. It has a short window of peak performance. That is why it has to be brewed fresh and used fresh. The limitation is not legal, it is practical. Making it yourself is surprisingly simple. Start with 1 cup of clean, sifted hardwood ash. Make sure it is free from paint, treated wood, nails, or chunks of charcoal. Place it in a wide-mouthed glass jar or bucket. Add 1 gallon of non-chlorinated water. If your tap water contains chlorine, let it sit out overnight first so the chlorine can dissipate. Next, stir in 1 teaspoon of blackstrap molasses or a few spoonfuls of mashed ripe fruit. The sugar is not for the plants. It feeds the microbes that will transform the ash. Mix well until everything is suspended. At first, the liquid will look cloudy and gray. Cover the container loosely with a lid, cloth, or plate. It must be protected from dust, but never sealed airtight. Gas needs room to escape. Within 3 to 5 days, you should see gentle fizzing on the surface. Small bubbles will rise and pop. The sharp, chemical smell of raw ash will begin to fade, replaced by a mild, yeasty or earthy scent. That is your signal that fermentation is underway. In cooler conditions, the process may take up to 2 weeks. Stir every day or two and trust your senses. When the smell shifts fully from harsh to earthy and the liquid deepens in color, it is ready. If it smells rotten or develops mold, discard it and begin again. A healthy ferment should never smell foul.
When done correctly, you will have a living mineral tea. It is fresh, active, and powerful, but it does not last long. For best results, use it within a week. Never seal it tightly and never ignore it. Fermentation is a living process, and observation matters.
Because this tonic is strong, it must always be diluted. This step is not optional. For every 1 cup of finished tea, add at least 1 gallon of water. Dilution protects roots from mineral overload and turns the brew into a gentle feeding solution. Apply it to moist soil only. Never pour it onto dry ground, which can pull in minerals too quickly and stress plants. If the soil is dry, water first, then apply the diluted tea.
Timing also makes a difference. Plants tend to need more potassium just before flowering and during fruit set. That is when this tonic can provide a noticeable boost, supporting larger blooms, stronger stems, and better fruit development. Avoid using it on acid-loving plants like blueberries or potatoes, since ash naturally raises pH. Do not apply it to very young seedlings. Wait until plants are well established with healthy root systems.
If the brew ever smells sour or unpleasant, discard it. Do not try to store it for later use. Leftovers should be poured out, not saved. Wearing gloves is a good idea, especially if you have sensitive skin, since ash can still irritate cuts.
Used with care, diluted properly, and applied at the right time, fermented ash tea can support vigorous growth within days. Meanwhile, millions of tons of wood ash are discarded each year. The knowledge and tools to transform it sit in ordinary kitchens, yet modern systems favor products that are shelf-stable and uniform. Living solutions do not fit neatly into boxes and warehouses.
Perhaps the future of soil health is not only about what is sold in bags, but about what we understand well enough to create ourselves.
What might your garden look like if you stopped waiting for permission and started experimenting with what you already have?